All right, welcome to this last Cloud Portal video here. At least using the imagery that I stamped out in this last Friday night live stream. All right, now this one right here was just an example of stamping out all the cloud imagery in black and getting it to blend together. But I don't have a lot of leeway here in terms of being able to stamp imagery over the top of this now. Unless it's like a really deep, dark silhouette of some trees like this. So I'm going to show you one of the things that you can do just with a little bit of space in here. Okay. Now I happen to have a lot of these glow-in-the-dark moons now. I have some glow-in-the-dark printable vinyl sticker paper that I've been having a blast with, and stamping on and then cutting out these types of imagery to apply into my scenes. And I thought I would put the moon right there. I could have other types of, just an open space in here and have some light coming out of there. But maybe we'll go with the moon in here, kind of peeking out from, just underneath these clouds, and maybe in this little open space right here, we'll decide if we're going to do a little bit of a kind of card surgery on here by opening up a little bit of space in there. But, okay, so we have all this area down here. All right, now, if you watched my last, was it 2 videos ago, we can do these beams in here, okay? Now, the beams look pretty dramatic over this kind of a more illuminated background. But I think it could be pretty important in this one just to reintroduce some light back into it, giving us a little bit more opportunity for some darker imagery, foreground imagery over the top of it. But, I mean, it could just be some beams coming out of a cloud too, whatever you want to do. All right, so let's see. Let's designate a vanishing point in here somewhere. Let's do that right there. See where that little triangle is, like that, where those two billows kind of meet. Let's just go with that one right there. And that will be our vanishing point for all of these different beams to come. And let's go right here. We'll start off with this one. Kind of designate, what size you want. Do you want it to be a narrower beam, larger beam, whatever you want. I do vary my beams, and I'll talk about it here as I start off. White pigment ink. I should probably re-ink this. I've been using this a lot of late. A 100% cotton ball. Okay, now see, I don't need to bring that white up there because it's already white on the scene. And I'm adding this kind of in the lighter area, closer to my light source, okay? And then, as this gets drier on here, and thus I'm applying a lighter application of it, I'm also tapping a little bit lighter too, like this, so that I can kind of transition my beam going from kind of a stronger application, a thicker application of ink, to a thinner one like that. And then, yeah, I think it looks like a kind of a more natural beam coming out of there. See how it kind of dissipates like that? I was originally going with a really solid, very opaque beam on all of my crepuscular rays when I first started doing this. Then it's like, let's add a little bit of variation into it, okay? And I thought looks a little better, I thought. Okay, now this one right here, let's do this right here. Let's just go like this. Let's add some in here. Thicker ink towards the light source, so more white over the light, okay? And then I'll just kind of break it up a little bit. I'll kind of have it dissipate like that, and then let's add a little bit more down here. It's just to kind of break up the beam a little bit. Maybe I'll have it transition a little bit, not just nothing in there, but I'll put a little bit in there like that. But watch this too. I'll put a little bit more up top than down here, okay? Like that. So you get a beam like this, so it's kind of like broken up a little bit. And if it doesn't look natural to you, you can go in and, you know, you can change it. It's like, you can go like right here, like that, and think, oh, okay, I need a little bit more right here, or something like that. And there you go, you know. It looks, you know, pretty natural. Okay, now these two beams are, well, they're not completely, whatever, symmetrical in terms of their width. I'm sure I have the vanishing point. Let's go with a little bit more of a narrow one this time then. Okay, so change your width a little bit, and you can add that in like so. A little bit more towards the light. When this white pigment ink dries, it'll be a little bit darker because it, I don't know, it just dries more see-through, okay? It doesn't dry transparent or something like that. It's a little bit, you know, there's just degrees of translucency. All right, let's see, let's come down. Let's go over here, maybe. Let's go... right here. Let's go right here. Make this one a little bit wider, I think. Sometimes when I make it wider, I make the beam kind of weaker. I don't know, it's like a, you know, the light is getting, oh, kind of dissipated over a wider area. I don't know. I just do that because sometimes it would just be too bulky to have like this gigantic, you know, slathering of ink. If it's like so wide. All right, so we have that, see like that? It's kind of breaking up a little bit right here. Then it goes like right here. Let's do something, see these clouds right there, how they're light like that? Let's put a little bit more light in the light. See how that looks. Yeah, something like that. See, it's kind of getting a little bit more illuminated that way. Let's have another one right in here. Always kind of use your same vanishing point. Sometimes I forget where mine is. So you just kind of, you know, get a piece of paper and aim it towards wherever. You'll be reminded of where it is, or shown where it is. All right. Looks pretty cool, I think. Looks pretty nice as is. I don't know. Do we need that moon in there? I'll probably still add it in. Let's add a little bit of this to my moon. And then let's kind of smooth some of these. Sometimes it gets a little bit too angular after you add in these beams. So what you do is you soften it up a little bit from the source of light usually, and you add more of that white ink around those areas like that. And then you come out into the beams, and it can look a little bit more natural that way. Remember, I'm really doing this with a very, very dry application of this white pigment ink, okay? Where people kind of go haywire is it's very dry, so like a couple taps, they can't see anything at all. So they add like a ton more ink. and then they go in there and it's a big blob, But if they get used to kind of, it's, we don't apply ink or media, be it with a marker or anything like that. If we're stamping an imagery, it's stamping in the color that that ink is. Or if you're applying a marker, it's typically that color and value intensity of that ink. But the thing is, when you're applying things with the, whatever applicator you happen to be using, you can use a very dry version of whatever ink you're using, whatever value you're using. You can stamp it black, and if you wipe it off enough, or off your applicator, and then you apply a very dry version of it, you can have a 5% gray from a black ink. So it's like the opposite with, white. I'm applying white, but it's just being applied very lightly. So being applied over black, right there, that's like a 5% gray or something like that. It's just very, very light, a very light version. So if you ever kind of, are using your media, you can really expand. You can have like, instead of, I don't know, whatever 20 colors of inks that you might have, you can use those inks strategically and have 1,000 colors of inks, because with like black you can achieve 5% gray, 10% gray, every percentage up to, however dark that black ink is. A lot of times the darkest black inks are sometimes like a little bit of gray or something. But from 0 to whatever that percentage is. All right, so I think that's looking pretty decent in terms of our lighting in here. It went from, pretty dark background, and it was fairly uniform in terms of the, kind of the overall pattern and value of all the clouds. They're really similar. So now we have a lot of variation here, and it's, there's more kind of dramatic light coming out of there, certainly with these diagonally applied beams, light rays. All right, so let's see if I want to put this in there or not. Looks pretty cool as is, but I haven't done this before, so I'm going to do this. I put moons behind things, but not behind like billowy, I don't know, kind of more subtle areas. So I can see these billows right here. Okay, see these 3 billows right there? What I'll do is I'll perform some cloud surgery on them. Like that. All right, and let's see if I made my way all the way through. Nope, I didn't. I always say, just kind of take it slow when you're going through something like this. You don't need to go through it all the way in one pass. Sometimes it's a little bit more prone to getting off track here a little bit. But what you have is this gap right now in the clouds like that, right? Here's like what not to do with your clouds in the back here. And then this moon can go right behind in there. That's a little bit harsh, but what we'll do is we'll blend that together a little bit more. Something like that. You can see how much the moon is sticking out back there. I think something like that right there. All right, so let's take off this. And again, it's just vinyl sticker paper, glow-in-the-dark vinyl sticker paper that we stamped this on. I think something like that will be okay. That's a little bit sticky right there. I'll throw this back on here until I mount this card. And then maybe we'll add in those trees down below, those spruce trees, okay? But let's see, here, before we do that, I mentioned I'm going to try to blend that in a little bit more, that moon, with those clouds that I chopped into here. So I'll try to put a little bit more of pigment ink right over the top of that and the cloud. Now this should be, pretty fun in terms of a, I don't know, a finished piece, because it's a little bit more interactive. Someone can take it into a dark space and that moon will glow. So yeah, it's kind of, it's a little bit more radiant here with the additional white pigment ink on there, like that. Now this is a semi-gloss paper, so I think what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to go, this is a really dark card. I think what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to use my black pigment ink on here just to get a thicker impression of my trees. Kind of darker silhouette, something, at least you want to incorporate some bolder types of imagery, just, the darker the background, as this will stand up against it a little bit darker this way. I don't know, maybe I should have stamped these, before, because you can have some of these beams going in front of a couple of these trees too, and that's always a good look. It makes it look a little bit more three-dimensional. And you can see that's a pretty dark impression over the top of it. Dye-based inks work by staining your surface, and pigment inks are much more surface-oriented, so the moisture from the ink does get absorbed into the surface and pulp of the paper, but pigment inks, that pigment stays on the surface for longer, or that's where it rests. It doesn't get absorbed as much into the pulp. All right, looks a lot, quite a bit, kind of more contrast there, doesn't it? Contrast in terms of value, light and dark, but also textural contrast. You have soft against sharp. And let's see, I saw my leafless pines here. I use those a lot in conjunction with one another. Go with a couple of the pines at different heights, like that. And we'll see about, possibly a quote stamp or something right here. I think that would finish it off, or you can put some I can make it look a little bit more kind of ominous with some bats or something like that in there, you know, for a Halloween scene. But we'll take a look at that. I'll figure this out. This needs to dry a little bit too, the pigment ink. I happen to use the Brilliance one, so it's a fast drying pigment ink, but you can see it's kind of wet there and shiny, so I'll give it a couple minutes to dry. I think we'll mat this off, and then we'll take a look at that quote and some possible other imagery. We have to have some good bats now. That would be pretty cool in there. Or the quote stamp would be enough too, I think, but we'll figure it out. Okay, tweaks before I get to some of the other elements that I'll add on here. I just dried, heat set my trees down below, and then I spray sealed the entire piece. And I thought these beams in the background were a little bit too subtle, so let's go in and let's tweak those beams by now adding another layer. Not necessarily over the entire beam again, but what we'll do is we'll make some adjustments right here. So I think I can go a little bit more three-dimensional in here by bringing in like a beam or two over the top of my trees. So what you're doing is you're kind of sandwiching your imagery into the scene by doing something like this, okay? And you don't have to just, you know, do it, you know, too, I don't know, whatever, strongly. It could be more of a subtle type of thing, as much as a light beam can be. They're usually pretty striking looking in general. They kind of become kind of the main hit of the scene more than the imagery themselves. See that beam coming out in front of it like that? And this one right down here, let's, yeah, it's too subtle right now. Let's bring it into the mix. It's kind of like this, but here, I'll do it. You see how I was kind of like unsure of whether I wanted to do it or not? Let's just do it very lightly at first, like this, okay? So I'm bringing it in over the top of that one tree right there. And then let's go a little bit over this one right here. Kind of do these little whatever light curtains from up top. So see, I went heavier up top, but then like down here, I didn't, like from mid beam down, I didn't put any ink. But see how that looks a little bit more dimensional that way. I think it could benefit from doing it all along the pathway of that beam. So let's go like this. We'll just do it on the top of the beam, because remember the bottom of the beam is like right over here, okay? Something like that. Yeah, it looks a little bit more dramatic. And let's come right in here. I'm going to do it at the top of those branches right there, those trees, okay? Like that, so it kind of dissipates right in here. I see it's not a hard beam coming down there. I mean, you can add in other beams too. It's like, you know, we can add this one right back here. It is a little bit dark, isn't it? Let's go ahead and do this right here. Let's just strengthen it a little bit. Sometimes when you spray seal, it gets a little bit darker too. So you just go in and adjust, you know. You can add it as light as you want it to be. That looks better. I think I had another one. Isn't it going that way? Can't even see the top of it. All right. Now, what I want to do is I want to let that dry and spray seal it again, probably, just to adhere it down a little bit stronger. But, figure out some matting on here. And additional embellishment to go along with this. And we'll finish off this card. All right, finished off here. We have this mounted up. It's good to get things matted where it's nice and flat. Moonlight is sculpture. Kind of goes with this a little bit. The sculptural forms would be the clouds, I guess. Usually I have it where, there's like a figure or something down below where there's rocks or, those types of forms. But then what I did was I added in these birds. I stamped that one out in dye-based ink, but it came out a little bit too light, presumably because I'm stamping it over the workable fixative. So it didn't adhere to that, but it looks like they're kind of like farther off in the back. So I stamped this one out in the black pigment ink right here, and it stamped out much darker, so it looks like, closer birds and, a little bit farther away birds like that. Silver perimeter on the quote stamp and the whatever matting frame here. And I thought that looked pretty good. So, we kind of made this out of, just a pretty uniform, just background cloud piece, which just on its own probably, didn't look great in terms of a finished. I gotta get rid of some of this matte paper clutter here. But yeah, I think we, kind of, I don't know, whatever. Made do, I guess, with these beams. And I think we have a pretty dramatic piece right here with our cloud portal going up into that glow-in-the-dark moon. So the glow-in-the-dark moon's, pretty fun. When I take it out of my room here, even though it's kind of light and daylight here still, that moon glows pretty aggressively with that printable glow-in-the-dark vinyl. All right, so last piece right here. I wasn't sure if I was going to finish this one off or not, because I've done these types of things before, but I thought, it's a good lesson for kind of bringing light back into a overall dark area. Okay, so without these beams and without that additional pigment ink in the background there, see, these trees wouldn't have stood out as much as they do. They're still kind of receding in the background because it's still reasonably dark back there, but I mean, they stand out a lot more than they would have, without the white pigment ink applications. The white pigment ink applications can really save a card a lot of times. So many times I utilize it for that purpose. But it's just one of my, I don't know, whatever regular, normal, applications that I do on probably 90% of my cards, and I just think it makes it look better. But they can save a card too. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the card.